Hey guys, so now what we're going to do is get into some jQuery, and what we want to do, the first task, is to hide all of these questions, alright, so that they don't show, and then of course we want to make it so just the first one shows. Okay, so what we want to do is go into our quiz.js file. Now what we want to do is we want to use the document.ready function. And what that does is it waits until the entire page is loaded and then runs whatever we put inside of it. Alright, and if you know any jQuery, you definitely know this. So in jQuery we use the $sign to represent it, and then inside parentheses we're going to say document, which is basically the entire object, the entire document object, and we're going to say .ready. Alright, now inside of this ready we want a callback function or a self-calling function, and then inside there is what we want to happen. Alright, so we can just say alert1, and what this will do is when the DOM is ready or when the document's finished loading, it'll just give us an alert with the number 1 if it's connected, which it should be. So let's reload. Okay, so you can see that this is taking a while. What I'm going to do is, instead of using the CDN from jQuery.com, I'm just going to include it locally. Alright, so I'm going to go to jQuery.com, and this is what I usually do anyways. I don't typically use the CDNs just for offline reasons. Or maybe it's just my internet connection. And I'm going to click this download button and then download compressed version, and just copy this, and I'm just going to create a new document in my JS folder, and I'm going to call it jQuery.js, and just paste in that code and save it and close it. And then back in the HTML file we're just going to include that instead of using this CDN link. Oops. jQuery. Alright. Alright, so you can see that that's faster. So it gives us that alert 1. Alright, now what we want to do is we want to make all of these questions disappear when the page loads. Okay, so in this document ready function, we're going to grab it with jQuery, which is the $sign, and we want to grab all of those questions. If we look at the HTML, you can see that every form has a class called question form, so we're going to use that. Okay, it's a class, so we want to use the question form, and then we want to just say hide. Okay, and we'll just add a comment here. Alright, so if we reload, you can see now we have no questions. Alright, so the next thing we want is we want to make sure that the first one is displayed. Now we can't just say question form.show because then they'll all show. So we need to grab something that is that makes that form individual, and that's the ID. You can see each form has a different ID, Q1, Q2. So we want to grab the form with the ID of Q1, and we want to display that. So back to the quiz.js, let's say show first question, and we'll use jQuery, and we're using the ID of Q1, say .show. Okay, so if we save that, reload, Now only the first one's displaying, and we can click on an answer, submit, and obviously the submit doesn't do anything yet. We need to create some kind of click handler. Alright, so we want to grab this button. So to grab this, we can use the ID of the question, Q1, and then the submit, the element with the ID of submit, because you can see in our form the submit button has the ID called submit. So let's grab that. Still inside of the ready function. We'll say JQuery, and we want what do we want? The first question, so the ID of Q1, and we want the submit button. Submit. Okay, so now here we can say .click. Okay, click is a jQuery event. Whenever this element's clicked, we want it to do something. We want it to run a function, a self-calling function, and in that function we want to do a few things. We want to make sure that all the questions get hid, first of all. So I'm just going to copy this line here. Alright, and that's going to include the question 1, but we need question 2 to now be shown. Okay, so we can do that with the ID of Q2, and let's make it show, but let's make it come in kind of elegantly. We'll use the fade in function, okay, which basically does what show does, except it brings it in kind of slowly and just really elegant. So we'll use that, and then for a parameter we can put in the speed in milliseconds, which I'm going to use 300. Alright, so we're also going to have a function run here that's called process, that will actually process the question and the answer to see if it's correct and all that, but we're not going to do that yet. We're going to do that after. So the last thing we want to do here is just return false, and that's because we don't want the button to go anywhere else. We just want it to do what we said, which is hide all the questions and then bring out question 2, and then that's it. Okay, so let's save that, and if we reload, we have question 1. If we click submit, it goes to 2. Now if we do it again, it goes back to 1. So we have to create a few of these. Alright, so I'm actually going to copy this. Now doing it like this isn't the optimal way to do this, but it's the easiest way to explain. Later on in, maybe not the next section, but the one after that, we're gonna make this into a loop so that we can just put this code in the loop and run it instead of having these 5 different blocks. Okay, so if you know jQuery and JavaScript, this probably doesn't look very good, but I think it's the best way for a beginner to really understand what's going on. Alright, so we have question 1, submit. Now we want question 2, submit, so Q2. And remember, we always want the one that's after it to come in on the submission. So we want question 3 to come in. Okay, and then we have 3, and then we have 4 come in, then we have 4, then we have 5 come in, and then we have 5. Alright, now when question 5 submit is clicked, that's the last question, so we don't need to fade in any question. We actually want to fade in the results, which will be the results ID. Alright, so that looks good. Let's save this and make sure we can just go through our questions. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Alright, and we don't have any results to print out yet, but that's what will happen. Alright. Alright, so what we're going to do now is we're going to set some variables up at the top here. that we can use later on. Okay, so above the document ready function, let's create a variable called score, and that's going to be set equal to 0 initially. Okay, I'll put in some comments here. We'll say set score to 0. We're going to have a variable called total, and that's going to be the total number of questions there are, which is 5 in our case. Alright, so the next one is going to be point. So by default we're going to set this to 1, and this is basically just the points per correct answer. So if you wanted people to get 2 points per correct answer, you could just change this variable. Alright, now the variable called highest, this is going to be the highest possible score, which is going to be the total times the point. Okay, so in this case the highest possible score to get is a 5, because 5 times 1 is 5. Okay, if we change this to 10 and 2, then the highest possible score would be 20. Alright, so that's it for our variables. Now we need an initializer. So let's see, initializer function init. Now we haven't talked about this yet, but what we're going to use to save this, the scores and the answers and all that, is the session storage API, which is featured with HTML5, but obviously it's powered with JavaScript. So we're going to set our correct answers right here, because we need something for our users' answers to compare to. Alright, now to set a session item or a session variable, whatever you want to call it, is very easy. Okay, so we're going to say session storage dot set item. Alright, now we have a key and a value that we can put in here. Alright, so the key for this is going to be A1, and this is going to represent answer 1. So the answer to answer 1 is B. Alright, if we look at the question, which tag should be used to represent the header, you can see that the answer is right here. It's header, and it's B. The value is B. Okay, so whatever the answer is we're going to use that value. Alright, so let me just copy this. Alright, so A1, A2, 3, 4, and 5. We have B, D, C. Again, this would be something that you would generate with your question creator engine that you might want to build. A and then B. Alright, so this will set all of the right answers in our session storage. Okay, so let's save this, and just to show you that what I'm saying is true, we can go to our resources tab and go to session storage, and if we look at this file, which is this page, you can see that the key, we have A1 through A5, and then we have the value. Now this method isn't a great one to use if you have a serious production quiz app and you have tech-savvy users, because they could just go in and do what I just did and see the correct answers. Alright, so that's not something that you'd want to use on a production line. Alright, but again, the purpose of this is just to teach you about session storage and other HTML5 features. Alright, so we have our correct answers set. Now we want to make sure that this init function runs when the page is loaded, so we're going to set up an event listener. Okay, so down at the bottom, after the document.ready function, Alright, so what we want to do here is say window dot add event listener. Alright, now the first parameter is going to be the event we want to listen for, which is going to be load. Okay, and then we want the function that we want to run is going to be init. And the third one we're just going to set to false. Alright, so what this will do is it'll listen for the load event. When the load event happens, it'll run init, which is going to set our answer items. Alright, so that looks good so far. The next step would be, now that we can scroll through our questions and we can set our correct answers, the next thing would be to create a process function that will process each answer the user enters and compare it to what we have up here. So we will do that in the next video.